Game jams, a competition where game developers from all over the world decide to give up sleep, eating, and the rest of their lives in order to make a game. And hey, I've made some games that work, so why don't I try out a game jam since I've never done one before? And lucky for me, the 7-day roguelike game jam starts in only a day. Usually, a game jam will have a time limit and a theme, and I bet you can't guess what the theme for this game jam is. The theme is to make a roguelike game in 7 days. For all of you who don't know what a roguelike game is, it's a genre of games based on the 1980s game Rogue. Besides its amazing graphics, Rogue introduced revolutionary advancements in gaming, such as procedurally generated levels, permadeath, and really relaxing background music that definitely isn't from the video I got this gameplay from. And you might notice that Rogue is a 2D game, and so are most other roguelikes. This is mostly because procedurally generating a 3D map is hard.
Step 1. Place rooms in the dungeon. Step 2. Create a Delaunay triangulation. Triangulation tends to avoid in this diagram, each dot is a room.
So that's why I decided to make a 3D roguelike game, because why go for the easy option? And now that the jam has just started, I can work on an idea. So I opened Word and I started thinking. Roguelike, procedural generation, permadeath, calming music. Yeah, I've got nothing. All I know is that I want the game to be 3D and have procedural generation. So I'm just gonna go with that and hopefully everything will just work out. After coming up with my idea, it's technically an idea, okay? I made a new 3D Unity project and added a player. I started making a player controller, and by making a player controller, I mean I watched like 4 tutorials and then combined them all to make one insane player controller. So even if the game sucks, at least the movement will be fun. The first thing for me to work on is also the thing I'm the most scared of, the procedural generation. Part of the reason that 3D procedural generation is so hard is because you need to generate a full room with a floor, walls, and a roof. So to make the process easier, I came up with a genius idea. I took away the room's roof and all the walls. Some of you might say this solution is lazy, but I would call it problem solving. After the first room spawns, the player will need to get to the other end of the room to spawn the next room. And because the room has been simplified, it should be pretty simple to generate the next room, or it won't work at all. To try and fix the issue, I performed some simple math calculations to find the distance of each room relative to the scale of the last room the player was in, and with the results of my calculations, the next room should generate in the right place. Or not. Okay, so I guess it turns out that even my math calculations can't figure this one out. So I decided to try the next best thing. Smash my keyboard until the code decides to work. And that actually worked. Now each room will spawn with the exact same gap no matter the size of the room. Getting this procedural generation working took a lot more time than it should have. But as long as I don't run into any more problems, I should be fine. To make the levels more interesting, even though they're already pretty interesting, I made a bunch of obstacles and had them randomly spawn around the level. Obviously, because of my expertise, this worked perfectly with absolutely no issues at all. Yeah, no, it didn't work at all. So to fix this, I just performed some more simple math calculations to find the rotation of the obstacle and calculate an offset quaternion to give the obstacle the correct rotation, which actually worked this time. It definitely didn't take me an entire day to figure this out. Now I've got the procedural generation working, and it only took me 3 days, which means I've spent almost half the time I have on generating this room. And I'm not sure if you can tell, but I didn't spend too much time on making it look good. So to fix that, I found some free textures on the internet and added them to the obstacle and the room. And with the textures added to the room, it's still pretty ugly, but at least it's better than what it looked like before. I also made a bunch of new obstacles, since all of the levels were feeling pretty similar. I think there were too many ramps with platforms, so to fix that, I added more ramps with platforms. But at least now there's a lot more variety in the ramps and platforms. I also worked a bit on the player's movement, and I added a slide so that you could move around the obstacles better. But I think I might have made it a little bit too fun, because I've just been sliding around this level for hours. And now I've spent a whole nother day and all I've added is this slide. So the next thing I want to add is some enemies so that there's actually something to do besides sliding around the level. I went into Blender and I made this character model. And when I say I made it, I mean I took it from one of my other games. And you might call that lazy, but I mean I would call that being resourceful. I want to have a few different types of enemies, but I don't really have time to design multiple different enemy models, so I chose the next best thing. Paint them all random colors and to give them eyes. Can we have a round of applause for my amazing art skills? I don't know how I do it. The gang's all here. You've got the yellow one and the green one and the red one. I haven't given them names yet. Next, I worked on a script that'll spawn the enemies around the level. It's kind of creepy walking around, just seeing all these people standing there. So to make the game a little less terrifying, I let the enemies walk around the level. Okay, this might be even more terrifying. Like I said, I want a few different enemy types. My way of doing this is to give each enemy a different weapon. I made a pistol pistol for the green guy, a rifle for the blue guy, and a rocket for the yellow guy. You might think I forgot the red guy, but no, I've got something big planned for him, and you'll need to wait to find out what that is. So now all of the enemies are heavily armed, and I think I made them even more terrifying. But maybe adding some animations will make the game less terrifying. So I went to my favorite website, Mixamo, and downloaded a bunch of free animations. And the animations work pretty good. I did have to get a little bit creative with some of them. The rocket guy has to hold his rocket sideways, but I think that just adds character. I also want to give an attack to each of the enemies, because right now their weapons don't actually do anything. I made a pretty simple bullet that'll shoot from the green guy's pistol and from the blue guy's rifle. The only difference is that each gun has a different fire rate. And for the rocket, I want to make a missile that'll shoot towards the player. But to do that, I need to do something called trajectory prediction. Basically, I need to find the angle that the missile should shoot at in order to hit the player, which can't be too hard, right? I mean, Unity even has a free tutorial on how to set it all up.
Using trigonometric ratios, Vx equals V0 multiplied by cosine of alpha.
Alright, so maybe trajectory prediction is a little bit complicated. So to avoid needing to deal with whatever that is, I've decided to make a homing missile that'll follow the player. I made some smoke particles that'll play when the rocket is fired, and an explosion effect that'll play when the rocket hits something. And the effect looks pretty similar to the explosion effect in this video, but I mean, that's just a coincidence. And now, each enemy has their own attack, and I think I did a pretty good job. Maybe too good of a job. To make the game a little more fair, I gave the player a gun, except it has this weird side effect of making enemies float, and it doesn't actually kill them, so they can still shoot at you while they're flying away, which isn't really what I was going for. So after fixing that issue and getting the gun working, the game is actually pretty playable. I guess my idea, or lack of idea, worked out after all. All I need to do to finish the game is add an ending, main menu, UI, music, and I mean, the player can't even die yet. And how long do I have left? A day and a half. Well, I guess I'm not getting any sleep tonight, or tomorrow night. I quickly added some health to the player so that you can die, but right now there's no way to know what your health is. So I spent hours forging the perfect health bar. This health bar is years above the technology of any other game. Nothing like it has ever been done before. So what do you think? Pretty good, right? And now that the player can die, I need to give them some more tools to help them survive. And by tools, I mean guns. Lots of guns. Or at least as many as I can make before the deadline. But before I get to that, I need a way for the player to get more guns. So to do that, I made a merchant that'll give the player their guns. And I think I did something wrong. Believe it or not, this isn't actually what it's supposed to look like. After I shrink the merchant back down into a normal person, I gave him a stand with a sign that says, "You better subscribe right now, or else I will find your address and send 47 pizzas to your house and make you pay for them." Actually, it says, "Guns for sale, take one." The player will have the option to take the gun on the left or the gun on the right. Alright, so I don't actually have any guns yet, so I guess I should start making some now. I made an SMG, a sniper, and a rifle. And I know what you're thinking, okay, but this is a completely different rifle than the one I made for the enemy. And every weapon was made with the same amount of effort and time. Definitely didn't run out of time on any specific weapon that I will not name. So now, whenever you come across the merchant, you can choose to pick up 2 randomly chosen weapons, which you will need for the final boss. It's the red guy, except he's gotten a lot bigger. He'll just walk around the boss room doing nothing. I have less than a day to finish this game, so I just don't have time to make the boss attack you. Instead, an army of regular enemies will spawn, and that should hopefully make the boss fight more challenging, unless you shoot the boss from really far away. Then it's pretty easy. So once you beat the boss, nothing happens. And that's because I have made 0 UI for the game so far. I still need to add a main menu and a bunch of other stuff, and I only have a few hours left to do it. I got to work making the main menu for the game, and can I just say, I don't know how I managed to make such a good menu in such a small amount of time. I even managed to add a how to play section. I don't know how I do it. I also added a menu for when you die and for when you win. And the last thing to add to the game is the music. So I went and found some free music on the internet, because everything on the internet is free, and I added it to the game. And now the game should be done, right? No. There are so many bugs. Invisible enemies. The boss has a chance just to never spawn. And for some reason, all of the guns are see-through. Honestly, I'm not really sure how that one happened. And to make things worse, I've only got a couple hours left to fix all of these problems. So as the final hours of the jam went by, I worked and fixed bug after bug. And right before the deadline, I submitted the project. How did it turn out, you might be asking? Not good. I actually made some parts of the game worse. The main menu is just missing its background, and to this day, I still have no idea where it went. And most of the bugs I mentioned before are still in the game, but at least the game kind of works, right? Instead of not working at all.